There we go. Well, Mr. Mike, I really appreciate you joining me. I have Mike from Witchcross, the legendary Witchcross from originally from Copenhagen, Denmark.
Yeah. So we basically Denmark. We started out just outside Copenhagen when we were very young, many years ago, and then yeah, we all sort of moved to Copenhagen, and we're there for a number of years. Yeah.
Yeah, I did a little bit of what's funny enough is that one of my good friends who has done a number of artwork for like the podcast merch and whatnot. He actually I had no idea just how magnificent Witchcross's sound is, and he had played some songs from Fit for Fight on one of his
Yeah.
Instagram stories, and I was like, I just immediately like it's all I listen to. Like I've been for the past 2 weeks, I've just been
Oh,
immersed.
really?
Yes,
Oh,
I've
brilliant.
just been immersed into the album Fit for Fight, and just really an instant fan. So I really appreciate you doing this podcast recording with me.
No, no, absolutely. I mean, I'm still blown away when people come up and say stuff like that to me, because it's I mean, we did the album when we were, yeah, way back, and it's that people still find joy from listening to it. It's amazing, really, to be honest.
Yeah, and I mean,
Mm.
I'm a huge fan of heavy metal. I mean, I'm a child of the '80s. I grew up with the likes of Judas Priest, Def Leppard, and
Yeah.
and all of that, and some of your contemporaries. So I'm just really captivated by that unique and definitive sound that came out of that time period, and I just really like to know exactly, uh, how did you, as a kid, growing up wherever you grew up. I assume it was Copenhagen or thereabouts.
Yeah, it's just outside Copenhagen. I mean, you have Denmark very shortly is a number of islands, and we have a little bit of a mainland connected to Germany, but majority of the cities are on a few different islands, and Copenhagen is one island. We lived about half an hour in a train journey away from there. So we grew up in a little town called Hillerød, which is like, as I said, 30 kilometers or 50 kilometers from Copenhagen. And it was like it was a fairly big town, and everybody knew each other, and we started playing music from a very young age. And me and the bass player, we met up, and played in a number of bands, and then we we took it a bit more serious. Since I was very young, I always been writing songs, and for some reason, all my songs were a little bit. I was always curious about this sort of the darker side, but it wasn't deep. It wasn't
Right.
deep rooted as such. It was more like Ghost and all that shit. So the first song I ever wrote was actually called Ghost Town, which was like a zombie sort of theme song.
Yeah.
And I was 12 and talking about go around this town with ghosts coming and approaching me and stuff. But then me and the bass player, we carried on, and we had a few bands, just rock bands, and trying to get a bit more of our own songs involved. But obviously, when you play in small festivals and bars, they just want to hear covers, basically. So we played a lot of that sort of Deep Purple and whatever rock songs, basically. And then eventually we said, no, let's just do our own stuff. And that's when a lot of people confuse this time we had then, which we were called Blood Eagle. They confused that with the early Witchcross stuff, which there's a crossover period, but basically, um, Blood Eagle never really recorded anything. So
Right.
when you see on the demo releases and stuff, when people call it the Blood Eagle tapes, it's actually the early Witchcross stuff, which was quite dark. But yeah, Blood Eagle was ham and organ and guitars and a slightly different vibe. But it took shape in that band, and then Witchcross was formed out of that. Me and the bass player, and then yeah, and then eventually the drummer joined us, and the singer Alex joined us. Yeah, and then so that was the early days of Witchcross around 79, 80, I think.
So y'all
And
y'all
then
y'all started exactly around like 1978, give or take.
yeah, yeah. So it was a bit like we were sort of together when some of the new bands. I mean, I used to listen to Saxon. Black Sabbath is a huge influence on me, and Judas Priest as well. And then when we sort of got the band up and running, it was very much like Sax and Angel Witch and stuff like that. We listened to that sort of thing. And so that inspired me to do Witchcross. That was rather than just go back to being more Uriah Heep and Deep Purple and stuff. We sort of wanted to do that specific, well, British sound. Really, that's what we aimed for back then. And I started writing songs. We had a guy that was just helping out, a lovely guy. He was our manager,
Right.
just a guy went and knocked on doors. But he was him and me. We started working on these lyric things, and he wrote a lot of the lyrics, and we actually wrote a song called Witchcross, which was about a group of witches in the forest running around and doing whatever. So there was a song called Witchcross, which it's never been released as such. And then the band sort of started out we did the first single in 81, I think. With it, one song was a direct tribute to Saxon, a song called "Are You There,"
Mm-hmm.
which people might have heard. It's been re-released as well. And there's another one called "No Angel," which is a more sort of a straightforward rock song. And that's how it started, really. And that we got a few gigs and a few connections from that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in the early years, it was just trying to get the band off the ground and persuade people to listen to it. It was a different environment to probably to where a lot of the other metal bands sort of started from. So it was. There wasn't any other bands around. There was Merciful Fate somewhere in Copenhagen, but back then there was not. We didn't have the internet and so on. So it was what we could read in magazines like Kerrang and other stuff. So
Yeah.
so it was very different back then.
Yeah. I know. It was different growing up. I remember a time when there was no internet, and it was just learning through magazines and tape
Yeah,
trading, and your friends knew of things that were cool, and you would just kind of latch on to what they were into. So it was all word of mouth for a while for me, because I actually grew up in a small town Louisiana, and
yeah,
so it's like everyone that I knew that I've considered a good friend of mine. I mean, they're always into like really like heavy, like underground, heavy metal and whatnot. And it's just like I would always like, even to this day, I mean, discovering things new, even through friends. Um,
yeah, yeah,
and like your band. I mean, just I thought I knew pretty much everything that was coming out of Copenhagen, like you said, like the likes of Merciful Fate and things of that nature. And but I mean, along comes Witchcross on one of my friends' stories, and and here we are. And I had no idea that y'all had an internet presence and Instagram, and I was like, I just said, let's give it a shot. Let's see if anyone from Witchcross would be willing to come on board. So I'm glad you did. I'm glad you responded, because I'm
no,
really
no, but I mean, for us, it wasn't I mean, the band wasn't over quick, but I mean, it, we only were the strong band was only available for a couple of years, really,
right.
when we go back. And because what happened was when we recorded Fit for Fight, soon after the drummer left, you know.
Wow.
For sort of personal reasons, but I mean, he's a very good drummer. I mean, and I would say, you know, to this day, all of us are still close in a way, you know. I mean, some of us play together, but we're all in contact, you know. And even though back then we were probably, as a band, we were only sort of existing for about 2 years, and then a little bit of a change and another change, and then the band sort of disbanded really, and it took a little bit of a turn for a year, and then there was nothing. I mean, for many years, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah. So for us, you know, the whole fact that people were listening to it, it was very interesting, and it's like and it was quite good to come back to it again and say, yeah, this was what we did, you know, and can we make some more of it, or just people want to hear it, what happens, you know. So
I I feel like, you know, Witchcross is just it's one you're one of those bands that more people, if they're into, you know, just that those pioneering days of heavy metal, like in the early, like, you know, late 70s, early 80s, like people should be more keyed in to what you guys offer for those earlier albums, and even today, whenever you're playing, you know, shows and festivals and whatnot. And I'm just really curious about your own personal journey. What was like leading up to the formation of Witchcross? What was the mindset of a young Danish kid like yourself, um, wanting, like, learning to play music? What music, you know, drove you to even play like darker things like uh, what you do now?
yeah, no, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think I started playing guitar at a very young age. I was in a youth club. Um, there was some kind of guitar there that you could pick up. One of the guys might have strummed the guitar. And I said, well, how do you do that? You know, so I learned to play a few chords, and I sort of, there was like a little chord books that you could pick up, the Bob Dylan and all that sort of thing, you know.
Right.
So I was just sitting there bashing away on these for years, and I persuaded my parents to buy me a guitar, a proper shitty one. And then you couldn't get guitar lessons at a young age. They wouldn't allow it for some reason. They said you need to be in year, whatever, in school year 4 or 5 or something. So when I hit that year, I said, yeah, right, let's get going with this guitar teaching, you know.
Right.
And but guitar teaching back then was like you had to learn classical music. And I was got a classical guitar and started playing that. But I mean, now, you know, it wasn't what I heard on the radio and wanted to play, really, to be honest. I mean, you already had Hendrix alive, and all that stuff was going on, and you know, Creedence Clearwater and bands like that was with, and there was a sound there that I sort of like listening to, and you couldn't play that on a Spanish guitar, based classical guitar. And I was sort of struggling a little bit with that. But my guitar teacher, he I don't know if he wanted not to teach classical music, but he was more into, oh, let's get a band together, let's play. So we started playing the Shadows and instrumental songs, and then we sort of had a band. We got a couple of girls singers, and so we were playing all sorts of things, Wings and America and bands like that. Quite sort of interesting stuff. And so I was playing live from the age of 12, really.
Oh, wow.
And so very soon you just became familiar with just being on stage in front of people. But I've always been like, I want to do stuff. I want to do, you know, I always try to take the lead on something. So yeah, so then we just got together and played in various bands, and I sort of got more confident on the electric guitar, and that sort of led to us trying a few things, trying a bit of Black Sabbath, trying a bit Bachman Turner Overdrive. We used to love them back in the days, you know, and stuff like that. So and I think we only had it on the radio, to be honest. And then we had a library that had a couple of albums you could rent and stuff. And then when you started making a bit more money, you could go to the record store, and luckily, suddenly you could buy a Manowar album or something, or Angel Witch. And that was like, wow, blew everything out. That's what I want to do. I don't want to,
Yeah.
I want to break away from the old guys and join this new trend thing.
Yeah.
And so that was really a big thing for me, really, when you heard these new bands. And also the sort of, I was quite fascinated at the darker side of things. And I would say Witchclaws is not it's not a satanic band or anything. It started out a little bit like that. We had upside down crosses on stage and blackout also on stage and skulls and everything.
Yeah.
But I think it was purely me into all that. The rest of the boys, they're trying to get rid of it. But yeah, it was quite funny in those days. So they used to label us in Denmark as the smiling heavy metal band.
Smiling heavy metal band.
Yeah. We were having so much fun on stage. We didn't want to stand and look like,
I got to ask a quick question. What I saw an old concert video of you guys playing like back in the day. Were you the guitar player with the sunglasses on stage?
No, that was Cole. That's Cole. Yeah.
Okay. Because I was like,
Cole was
Cole had the stage presence.
No, I mean, so what happened with our band? Go back. So we when we did the first single, we had a rhythm guitar player called Stoney. He's unfortunately not with us anymore. He's dead, and he was playing mainly the rhythm guitar because we saw Judas Priest and we needed a bit more rock sound, But we thought, then suddenly we need twin guitars. And then this guy in a record store in Copenhagen, where we used to go and get tips on new bands and stuff, he said, I think I know a guy, and that was Cole. And he sort of came in, and I think he was a very good guitar player, and he was very good at he picked up a lot of the Aussie stuff or whatever, and so with him in the band, the songwriting changed a lot, and I think that was a mixture on the album that we had a variety of songs that blended really well together, and also when I go back and listen to Fit for Fight, there was just a number of elements that worked really well, I think. Songs that had been written by various members of the band brought together and then turned into a band song. And when you have a band like that, some songs are written 4 or 5 years ago when you get to actually record them.
Right.
So that was, I think that was what it was, and also I think, which is very different to the recordings of today, is you went into a studio and that studio had a sound and a vibe, and it formed the whole creative process really. Whereas today now it's very hard for bands to actually get a completely unique sound because it's all done on Pro Tools or whatever,
Right.
And we are struggling with it today, when we do albums, because you sort of think, it doesn't sound right, but it does. I mean, most recordings done at a decent level would sound all right, but I think much more back then it was just depending on where you ended up recording your albums. And we did record in the same studio as Merciful Fate, funnily enough, but with a different producer, but the same engineer. So it was,
So, how long did that recording process for Fit for Fight take? I mean,
we did a bit of sort of a couple of demos, I think, and on the back of our single, this record label approaches and said, can we do something together? And they said, maybe do an EP. And we were like, oh no, if we pay for the recording, can we do an album? And they said, yeah, the 4-color album. You know, it is like back then it was a different world. I'm telling you, it's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
to get an album out, it was tricky, you know. And it was a small label, but they were very keen. So yeah, so we went in the studio. I think we had a week in the studio to record that. Maybe 3 days to mix it or something. So yeah, something like that. And we just stumped up the money ourselves and went for it.
I tell you,
Which was
the production on it, the recording, I mean, it's still, in my opinion, it holds up to this day. Like, I mean, like whenever I heard it initially, and because like these days there are so many kids that are paying homage to bands of the likes of Witch Cross and Merciful Fate, Judas Priest, and so on and so forth. And they're like I think of the band Enforcer from
oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
from
yeah,
Sweden. I
yeah,
mean, that's their whole thing is just playing music that sounds just like from the days that y'all started, and
yeah,
everything is done like you said, completely digital, Pro Tools. A lot of bands could just DIY it, but like with now, I mean, we're talking about your album that was put out back in 1984. It was fully analog, and it stands the test of time. And that's
yeah,
something
yeah,
that
yeah.
that I, as a fan, just absolutely appreciate that.
No, no. I mean, we did have a very very good guy, you know, the producer, and he was like an extraordinary guitar player. He was actually a very very accomplished guitar player and played with for a number of bands, you know. And he had produced our first single. And he got us a good deal, and he was the one that actually made things happen, in the sense that he said, I can get you that studio, they got a week off, let's do that, you know. And we say, yeah, we pay. And we paid him something, but I mean, he did it for the love of it, really, to be honest. And he brought, there was a couple of backing singers and his girlfriend and another woman he worked with, so they were singing backing vocals for free on this album, you know. So it was all really nice and easy going, to be honest. We did spend a lot of time just preparing for the recording. So when you go in the studio, you're more or less there, you know. So that in that sense, you could get a lot of stuff done. And he was quite good at hearing how far he could push the band. He knew exactly when to say, yeah, you're done next, you know,
Right.
get on with it type thing, you know. So yeah, hats off to Ivan. He was a great guy.
So, Mike,
Very helpful, very helpful.
within the band, I mean, for all intents and purposes, you are the lead guitar player. I take it, like you play all
Yeah,
the
I, I,
keys.
was, I wasn't I wasn't back then because we were two lead guitar players, so we were
Okay.
we were sharing the duties. But yeah, um, and today we are still two guitar players. But I mean, in terms of original members today, it's only me and the bass player
Oh
who
wow.
actually survived the whole thing. As I say, we're still very friendly. Occasionally we have the original singers join us on stage, for a couple of songs now and again, you know. So that's quite good. But yeah, I suppose we can get into that a bit later. But yeah, we sort of. I mean, back then you sort of it was quite fresh for us. We just wanted to get. There was a lot of energy, you know, which I think they were luckily captured on the recording. They didn't take the energy out of the band that was there. You know, they managed to sort of capture it in that. And also, the drummer was not really a heavy metal drummer, you know. But
Wow.
so he played some different things. As I say, he was just a drummer in our hometown, you know, like. And we persuaded him to play this, and I made tapes for him with sax and Judas Priest, and listen to this. This is how they want to play. So he approached it slightly different, and you can hear some. If you have for instance, on Face of a Clown, the
Yeah.
pattern he plays on that is quite unique with the double snare and stuff. And the people go, what's that? But that's the sound. It's almost like when you hear some Beatles stuff and there's a Ticket to Ride sound, and how the drums actually form part of the sound. And I mean, yeah, as I say, we're all very close, and he actually played on our return gig when we played Keep It True. He was the drummer for that gig again, so
Yeah,
so yeah.
so the energy, whenever you mention that, it's like every song, like it's obviously I've never seen Witch Cross live, and I would love to, by the way, but just every song just has this energy that is just it can only be captured in the studio the way y'all did it. Everything is so punchy and bombastic and just technically proficient. And I mean the solos, I mean like the dueling solos is so dynamic in nature, and it's I feel like it's a damn shame that Witchcross doesn't isn't like held as near and dear as some of your contemporary bands. I mean, so like my question is once the album was done, what was the reception like back in those days for you?
Well, I mean, you had to picture this thing in Denmark. Heavy metal was something you didn't play. I mean, to be honest, you could, if you were lucky, you could play in a bar in Copenhagen, maybe, and then you could persuade a couple of the smaller festivals, around our hometown to put us on. So there wasn't really a metal scene.
Mhm.
We were lucky enough to get a tour in Holland and Germany and play a bit like that, but our record company didn't have the funds to book us on a major tour or even a small tour. So it was go and play some headline gigs, basically small clubs, which was amazing for us, because if you can imagine playing to people that didn't really want to hear heavy metal in Denmark, to go to Holland or Germany, where people were going crazy for it back
Yeah,
then.
yeah,
Um, um, and our album was out on Roadrunner, which is a Dutch label. So they secured us 4 dates there, and so we did play in Holland, which was lovely. And the only other place we played outside Denmark was Sweden and Germany. So to do that sort of thing was great. Um, but it was a bit strange because there wasn't this scene that you can sort of dip into constantly and say, oh, we don't have anything in the books, but we'll probably get a gig in a couple of months. Or it was just like when you didn't go abroad to tour, and the manager said, well, we need a new album to actually go back. We can't just go back. And we said, can we go back again? And he said, no, we need an album. And then by then it's already was falling apart a little bit with members of the band and stuff. So it was very I mean, it wasn't a great feeling. You come back and it was crazy coming back off a tour, and walking around with sunglasses on and feeling like you're on top of the world. And
I'm
then
sure you did.
yeah, and we were just happy, and but then we had a few festivals which was quite good, and then it just fizzled out, to be honest, I
Yeah.
think.
When was that time that you started noticing like things were kind of fizzling out for you?
Well, I mean, unfortunately, after our first tour in Holland, there was uh, the guitar player retired for various reasons, um, or, or we kicked him out. It's still a bit blurry, and people probably say whatever. But we stopped we didn't work with him again, and had to have a replacement. But he was quite a big part of the sound and the songwriting. He was a good part of the band.
Hmm.
Um, and and we'd already changed the drummer to a different drummer, which was fine. He was touring with us and whatever. But so it was a different band suddenly when you started and going in and trying to record stuff and preparing for the next album, which I thought sounds a bit different now. It's a good different, or it's okay different, and in the end, as I say, you know, there wasn't, the drive wasn't there anymore for various reasons, and me and the singer just decided to move on, to be honest,
Yeah.
to do something else, and it was just it was a bit yeah, it's what it was, and we did sort of toy. We had a few of the guys from leftovers from Merciful Fate, the original drummer and one of the guitar players, joined us, and we did something, a couple of recordings. But again, that was hard, and then we branched into a different band, you know, so more mainstream band after that, you know. Yeah.
I'm really curious about like what were those early shows like? I mean, can you like give us some stories of like just how insane the 80s were for Witch Cross, if there was any like, you know, I guess illicit parties and whatnot.
There were, I think there was some, but it wasn't like, we weren't really a touring band, so we weren't quite into the whole touring thing, you know. I mean, yeah, that was parties, there was
Yeah.
stuff going on, yeah. Especially when you come to a place like Holland back then, and they were used to having bands play there. You know, we would play the same place as Man of War, what Angel Witch, and all these bands are just, oh, they played there last week. You're gonna play, you know, and it was crazy. I mean, and we just embraced it and said, yeah, this is fantastic, you know.
Yeah.
Especially for me, I just like, I decided I'm never going to give up on music. That's what I want to do for the rest of my life, you know. So in one form or another, you know, whether it's with this band or any other bands, you know. So, so that became sort of, so to speak. I mean, I always knew I wanted to do music, but this, when you play in front of crazy people like that, you just go like, yeah, this is bonkers. I mean, we played Eindhoven, and people were crazy, and they had this idea that they were just going to spray us with beer, you know. And we, you know, so you were there on stage, and you know what happens when you spray beer on guitar strings?
Oh,
they snap, so like that. And I, at one point, I just jumped in the audience, was cheering for the band, and they were like, "Oh, but you are in the band? Oh, fuck, yeah, go back on stage and start playing again." Yeah. But it's just like, well, we still have it to this day. We just want to engage with the people. We don't see it as they're fans of us. We all like, we're the same, you know, because
right.
when we started out, we loved the music, you know, and we're not really you're the fan, we're the band. No, we all sort of, we want to be part of that whole thing, you know.
Yeah.
And we do take our time out to talk to as many people that want to talk to us, you know.
Well, I really appreciate you talking to me. That's for sure.
No, but I mean, we're an old band, you know. We don't need any more help. You know, it's fine, you know. But it's good to be able to tell the story, you know, and then hopefully some people pick up on it and say, let's check these guys out. But we had it the other way around. We had people listening to the newer stuff and then go back and say, no, we did stuff before, you know.
Right.
Which is quite the other way around. But I suppose people hear music, you know, and then they go, where is this coming from? And why is it there? And who are these people?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Whenever, as a guitar player, like whenever you heard the likes of like you said, like Manowar and Merciful Fate and Judas Priest, did that push you to be even more technically proficient as a player?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, when you listen to music, you think, when you're very young, you know, so you're a young musician, you might not be able to copy completely what you hear from other bands and styles and whatever. And I sometimes think that's the strength of a young band. You know, they tried to sound like Iron Maiden or Judas Priest like we did, but they couldn't because they were not good enough musicians, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not saying that we were worse musicians than the others, but we couldn't just pinpoint all of it, you know. So that creates your own sound in a way because you want to be like them, but you're not. People don't say, "Oh, you're copying them," you know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there was our first single. I think it's basically a rip-off of Saxon, you know. to, but it was meant. We call it a tribute to Saxon. That was what it was, you know.
Yeah.
And we just, but it sounds very much like Dallas 1 p.m. You know. So so if you would check it out, you can hear the riff and the little things. But still, you know, when you it's only if you hold them up against each other. It's not when you hear it, you're going like, that sounds like Saxon, you know. But
Right.
if you put them against each other, you say, oh yeah, I can hear he's got the riff there and the idea there, but it's still different, you know. And I think that was what it was, you know. But yeah, when you hear, you know, yeah, Judas Priest with the twin guitars, we were like, yeah, we want to do that. Let's sort that shit out,
It,
man.
it gives
Harmony.
it gives the music such a full and more dynamic sound with two guitar players.
Yeah, yeah,
Sure.
yeah. Well, also for us, I don't think the drummer listened to any Judas Priest unless we forced him to, you know. But he was just playing drums, and it made it a unique thing, you know what I mean? And to be fair, you know, um, I think it's a good thing if you have different influences. I mean, we all came from different, not musical backgrounds, but we all came listening to different type of music when we first joined together,
Of course.
and 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 I think that was different back then, and it probably was the same for Judas Priest and bands like that. They listened to other stuff, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and you can hear it on the early Judas albums. It's like it's not only metal, is it? So it's a good mixture, I think, um, and I think that's where we came from as well, you know.
Yeah.
Obviously, when you're a musician, you want to constantly improve yourself. Um, whether we managed to do it so much in the early years, but we did rehearse rigorously actually, but yeah, but it was very hard to keep the band alive without live gigs, you know.
Yeah.
I think so.
And I think probably because, like back, after 86, 87, things started getting a little more aggressive. Like people started listening to more aggressive things, and even towards the 90s, you've had like, the big grunge movement kind of take over and all that stuff.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's a lot of bands, Witch Cross and outside of all that. I mean, just kind of like, either just took a pause or just disbanded altogether because of those different musical movements, I guess.
yeah. I think we just disbanded because, as I said, there was an 80. We couldn't see it getting radio play. We couldn't see, you know, there wasn't any local gigs and so on. So we sort of went a slightly different direction, really.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the bass player and the drummer and one of the guitar players, not original, tried to do something else, but and they managed to do a little bit, but then it never went further than that, unfortunately. So it was just and and um, and Denmark was it sort of changed a little bit in the late 80s because rock music became more popular,
Mm-hmm.
but it was definitely more like the lighter side, you know, more AOR, more, you know, glam rock, you know, sort of
Yeah.
thing,
Yeah.
which, you know, so bands like that sort of seem to sort of come out of that. There was a few metal bands, but not. It was a bit later than Denmark started to have their own scene, really. But back then, you know, no,
See,
nothing.
see, me personally, my personal opinion is, I would actually put Witch Cross into the whole like pioneers of that new wave of heavy metal. And saying that, like whenever you were watching these different eras of like glam rock unfold, what's your take on that? Did you feel as like did the music get too plastic and too fake for your liking, or like or did
No,
you like or did you like absolutely love it?
to be honest, I used to love it. I mean, yeah, no, I mean, when bands came out, you thought they're doing really well. You think, well, why are they doing well and we're not doing well? And you think, oh, we were doing the wrong kind. Went that route a bit, um, and then and that's sort of that was pretty good, But I th- I think the music wasn't as honest as when we were younger. To be honest, it
Mhm.
was a bit more contrived, so to speak, and
Yeah.
it was more poser related, which we did, whatever. Uh, but it was still rock, but it wasn't. It certainly wasn't heavy metal anymore.
Hmm.
What we played,
Right.
um, and 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 I think that was the only scene we could sort of exist on in Denmark actually, we played a bit in Sweden as well with that sort of music. I mean, bands like Europe were coming out, and Bon Jovi and that sort of thing, and that seemed to gain sort of popularity with the certainly in Denmark with the audience.
Hmm.
I mean, I would say Bon Jovi was way bigger than Black Sabbath ever was in Denmark. So
Wow.
you know what I mean. So it's like what, and even bands like Judas Priest. I mean,
Yeah.
they were. But so I mean, and I mean, yeah, you had bands like Scorpions and suddenly they were playing more sort of mainstream rock and whatever. And I think Judas went into a phase where they sort of became, straightforward rock and roll, really.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. And then they sort of obviously they turned around a bit now again, but yeah, stadium rock or whatever you would call it. But no, for us, I mean, I think when you're a musician, you care for your music, but you also want people to appreciate it and listen to it because it's no good just standing in a rehearsal room playing, and are we going to do a gig? No, we're not.
Yeah.
So, and then you feel a bit disheartened about the whole thing, saying, oh, "What the fuck is the point in this?"
Right. Right.
And then we sort of thought, let's try something else, and mainly me and the singer tried something else. So, but I mean, to be fair, which was sort of probably stopped 85, 86 ish, and then by by the end of the 80s, I'd already left Denmark to move to England.
Oh.
So, so yeah, to do something in a different country.
And it was all music related. Moving to London.
Yeah. No, that was to make music,
Mhm.
and that was a bit more rock and roll, to be honest. What I did, still a little bit glam metal, still a bit Zeppelin, Yeah, that's definitely rock, but yeah.
What
And then and then you just start playing gigs, in pubs and whatever. So yeah,
what year
yeah.
did you decide that hey, I want to give another like hard push, like getting Witch Cross off the ground again?
It was, I would say, oh, it was sort of the early 2000s when sort of the internet sort of picked up a little bit, and I was somebody had emailed me about Witch Cross, what's going on with this band, and I don't know if you're aware of this, but there was a number of companies they made pirate copies of the album and released them,
Oh, I didn't know that.
or maybe they bought the rights from somebody who didn't have the original rights and whatever. But anyway, so there was a few sort of pirate versions out of Fit for Fight, which certainly wasn't. We didn't know about it, and we didn't get paid for that.
That's shitty.
And then, yeah, but I mean, it's just what we didn't think what was going to happen with this. So to this day, I don't know how many albums we actually have sold worldwide. But on the initial stuff we did, I think we did 20,000 albums worldwide, which is not a lot, when it came out initially. But it did pretty well in America, I think, and so on. And that's probably why they started doing the pirate versions of it.
Mm-hmm.
And they got sold in stack. Some of them were a bit shitty. The versions there wasn't proper mastering and stuff,
Right.
which is a shameful thing. So when I sort of started looking into it, it was maybe 2007, 8. I thought, maybe do something, because there was a little bit of interest. So I thought, maybe I'll play a bit more metal again. Um, and and forward a couple of years, and suddenly somebody approached me and said, "Oh, would you like to play a concert?" I was like, "What do you mean?" "Yeah, but there's people interested in this." And somebody said, "Oh, you're on YouTube." Yeah, good following on YouTube. Okay, fair enough. And then that was when we got asked to play at this festival in Germany called Keep It True,
Mm-hmm.
which is like a massive sort of underground festival. And we're talking probably 18 months ahead of the actual gig. They approached us and said, and at the same time, there was a massive interview going around with all the members of Witchcross, this American label called Headbangers, where they were putting out all the old demos. They managed to dig up some video recordings, release them, and for some reason it all aligned for we were doing this show. The albums were there, the triple albums were there, and it was suddenly I was like, yeah, what the hell, what's going on here? And I said we had a new singer in the band by then, because a long story short, but the original singer said, it's not really my thing anymore. I think you should get somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
So I approached this guy I worked with in a couple of other bands in England. I said, do you want to do it? I knew he was great on stage. And I've spoken to him about writing some stuff. So we wrote a song, which ended up on the comeback album, but we played it at that Keep It True gig we played. So completely original song. And by the second chorus, we could see people joining in, singing along, and saying, yeah, we just gonna roll with this, carry on. And then so that was the starting point. We had these albums that we could sell as merchandise. We printed up T-shirts, and suddenly the whole thing was working in a way which was quite cool, and we sort of got embraced by the new metal scene, so to speak.
Right.
Where people were interested in the past rather than only new bands.
Yeah. I have
Yeah. Yeah.
I have a really good friend of mine who he's a festival organizer in Houston, Texas, who he put
Yeah.
together Hell's Heroes in at the White
Oh
Oak.
yeah.
And Christian's thing is pulling out bands, these legendary bands, and because like me, he's a huge heavy metal enthusiast, heavy metal and everything extreme, like black metal and death metal and so on and so forth. But his festival it's kind of like curated to where it's just putting together some of the more extreme acts in black metal and like old school heavy metal.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, it's like I don't know if y'all ever played it, because I know he's been doing the festival now for like 8 years. It's gonna be 8 years in March.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
I saw that he did like one of the stories that I put uh um Rocking the Night Away as a soundtrack for it.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I was my selfish thinking is, got to get Witchcross to play this fucking festival of yours, man.
I
So
know it'll be amazing. We had a few near things booked in America, but it's getting really difficult to get in,
mm,
and actually do it without causing problems, I think. But we love to come and play in America, to be honest, I mean, it's a dream come true, I played there with other bands and I always thought it was good fun, but we haven't sort of played there with Witchcross ever,
That's wild.
So it would be amazing. But, yeah. If somehow it could work, and to all your American promoters out there,
Yeah.
make it happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully someone's watching.
We're ready.
It'll be great. It'll be great. I will be first in line to buy that ticket, I tell you.
Brilliant.
And so
but yeah, I find it, you do have a fair bit of American bands sort of seem to make it over to Europe, but I think there's a lot of restrictions trying to get into America. And it's, work visas and everything. It seems to be very hard. I think there are ways around it, but I mean, whether there's legal ways or it's like, I think you can do it as a charity thing or something, but you still got to be careful with this shit.
Yeah, it's America has become one tricky place. I mean, to put it very lightly.
Yeah, no, I think so. Yeah. But
we're probably getting, the worst attention in all the worst ways.
I know.
In the past, 10 years or some shit. But that's neither here nor there.
No.
But
no.
But I for one, as a fan of the band, a new fan, and probably I'm gonna fit for fight is gonna be in a steady in the playlist forever as long as I'm able to listen to music. But what I'm really genuinely curious in is after all these years, it's do you keep up with what's what's coming out new as far as new bands and new movements of music and whatnot? Did you ever get into anything outside of what you started with as heavy metal? Do you refer back to the classics like Saxon and so forth?
No, not necessarily. I mean, I mean, even back then, I used to like listening to a lot of different music. So and I still do, and I listen. I constantly go to metal gigs, and when we're at festivals, we try to catch up on a few new bands and whatever. So just try to keep up with the whole thing. And I mean, some of the more aggressive stuff, maybe not, but even, Opeth and bands like that, Bloodbath I really like, and so there's obscure things I really get into.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm also very much into guitar music, so, instrumental stuff and, so then I suppose that's a bit more progressive stuff. And well, yeah, blues and rock, yeah, it's a massive big mixture of everything, to be honest, for me. But I mean, when you have something you done when you were really young, and when you come back and play it, it just brings you back to that age.
Yeah.
And it's like it creates something. We created something that people still listen to. That touches my heart. I mean, I still get goosebumps when people sing along to Fight the Fire, and down, and they all sing. You go, what the hell is this, man? This is crazy shit. And we recently played a couple of gigs in it was mind blowing. I mean, it's literally. And I'm proud of the whole band. I mean, we're not young men, but we do come across very energetic on stage.
Yeah.
So and people are still impressed with that. So yeah, I think you can't stand there and wait for the audience to react. The band just gonna bang. Here we are, take it or leave it, type thing. And that's what we're about.
Yeah.
You don't just stand, oh no. And yeah, that can be technical problems, but we tend to get on with stuff and we have a laugh. We literally we just have a great time when we're on stage, and I think people can see it, and they then they get into it and start stage diving and stuff. And I think this is not really the type of music you stage dive to, but yeah, go ahead. So it's
They
all
just feel it.
it's very good, yeah, very good.
They just
Yeah,
feel it in their bones. They
absolutely.
got to
And
do it.
no, but the thing I can appreciate it. I mean, the album is probably has some kind of cult status, and people just go mad for it, because they've heard it when they're at a bar, a rock bar. They might play a couple of songs, and people just know all the lyrics and whatever. So
Yeah,
it's
speaking of
just
the
impressive.
lyrics,
Yeah,
I know like a lot of the lyrical content. I mean, there's like a like fantasy
yeah,
going on, and there's some social context to it. Were you
yeah.
responsible for any of the lyrics while during the writing process?
Mm, not on the first album. That was mainly Alex, the singer, doing that.
Hmm.
He had a good way with words. Um, yeah, I think he captured the whole thing really well. Um, had a unique way of maybe singing some stuff, which maybe people didn't sing that well. I don't know, but I think one of the lyrics was written by the bass player. Killer Dogs, I think, was written by Jan. Um,
That's another favorite of mine.
and Killer Dogs, yeah, it has changed a lot. It's quite different now live, but I really like the new version of it. So if you ever see a clip of that, it's quite different, but people love it now. It's a lot heavier now. I would say the live band now, I think we're doing a great job actually playing the songs live, to a really high standard, So which I'm quite proud of the fact that we can deliver it.
Yeah,
So,
I watched one of
but yeah,
the live videos from whenever it was the 30-year anniversary of Fit for Fight, and
oh yeah,
I think this was back last year or 2024
oh
maybe.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, could have been.
and it was just, I mean, like you said, the energy was still there. The musicianship is clearly there. I mean, everyone like they were having fun. I mean, the crowd included. So there's something to be said about Witchcross. Like after all these years, I mean, y'all still have it. Just there's whoever's involved, you're doing the music as justice. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, I mean, we had a fair few funny experiences with the new lineup, really, and when we played the last indoor Keep It True, we were first band on the Friday, and I looked out from backstage. There was nobody in the hall. What's going on here? And then by the time we get on stage, the whole place is packed and bouncing from the first chord. You go like, wow, this is great. You think, oh, it's going to be one of these slow rubbish things. But also we have played gigs in Italy at 2 in the morning when there was 40 people in the audience, and the poor festival they just didn't get the numbers in. It
Right.
had nothing to do with us. It was like a 2-day festival, and they just basically went bankrupt. So yeah, there's ups and downs, but I think there's a lot of good people in the business, and luckily we haven't really worked with anybody that hasn't been in it for the right reason. So which is good. So
Well, Mike, before I let you go,
yeah.
one of the things I love doing is getting every artist that comes on board like some of their favorite albums. I like to get like 6 albums from you that, I mean, if you were on a desert island, or God forbid the apartment or the house was on fire, you had to reach for your favorite 6, which ones would there be?
Oh, that's a bit tricky. Oh well, now we're talking heavy metal here, but
Anything you want, anything you want. No, no,
yeah, no,
no genre based.
I think I have to go with Hotel California for one. probably Rumors by Fleetwood Mac. It's very sort of, slightly different. Armed and Ready, Michael Schenker, big favorite of mine. British Steel, maybe Judas Priest, maybe something else. Diary of a Madman.
Oh, that's a great one.
The first Black Sabbath album. Yeah, I think that's 5.
Yep.
I think that's what I would go for. If I was pushed, probably Steely Dan.
Oh,
Arja.
which Steely Dan album?
It would be the Arja.
Oh yeah.
Aja.
That's that's one
However you
great.
pronounce it. Oh,
Yeah, that is one great Sacred Six, I would suppose.
Well, I think when you for me, music is always been, if you have too much of one thing, it becomes too much, you know.
Yeah.
And I would say, you know, when we played with Witchcross at some of the festivals we played, we think we're very different to some of the bands, you know, because it could be death metal, or I mean, whatever the festival is, you know, and we think, are people really gonna love it? And when we go on, people just like the sort of lightness to the music, so which is great, you know. I mean, and it just shows that people have an open mind to a lot of music, really, rather than just saying, "Oh, I only like that," which is quite pleasing. And I'm not talking about mainstream metal, you know, like AC/DC and whatever. And people go and see it, and I say, "Why do you go and see AC/DC? You don't really like heavy metal." But they're not heavy metal. It's just like, because I want to go and tick that box of seeing AC/DC, you
Right.
know.
Right.
It's like, for me, it's like a bit weird, you know. So I'm not being snobby about it, but I'm just saying, you know,
You like what
when
you like.
you go and play, you know, obscure festival, a lot of death metal band growlers, wow, that shit, and then you come up with Night Flight to Tokyo. It's quite poppy, to be honest, you know. But and we're not really trying to trash it out, you know. We just
Yeah.
played what it was on the album, you know.
Yeah.
Because that's the song. That's what people want to hear. They don't want to hear us try to, you know, you rock it out in a different way, you know. So, and I think I appreciate that people, you know, at least listen to it and say that was fucking awesome, or whatever. For whatever the reaction is, at least give it a try, you know, which
Yeah.
is the main thing.
Yeah, definitely. My reaction is just that. When I first heard it, I was like, "This is fucking awesome!" Like, I mean, it's kind of cool because, you know, whenever I post it as, I mean, I used uh Witch Cross's music as one of the promotional, like, as a soundtrack for one of my promotional reels for the
Oh,
new merch
brilliant! Yeah,
for the new merchandise. I was like, it's just too awesome. It 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 just, it feels right. You know,
yeah.
it sounds like, you know, the type of music that I grew up on, and, you know, and what made me, you know, just want to go into that heavy metal realm, you know, from an early
Yeah,
age. I mean, I was listening heavy metal at the age of 4, which I feel kind of coincidental, because I mean, 84, that's whenever Fit for Fight came out, you know, to the audiences, and I had no idea, but, you know, here we are.
yeah. Yeah, that's brilliant. I mean, what I could listen to when I was 4 or 5 or 6, it was like the Beatles. You know, that was what it was. You know, so and it's probably, that's probably why the music sounds like it sounds. You know,
Yeah, it's
because we
brilliant, man.
grew up with a different background. You know what I mean? So it's like,
Yeah.
it's just
Well,
what it
Mike,
is.
thank you so much for coming on board. I'm really thrilled with the conversation that we had today, and I really hope for the best for you and the remaining members of Witchcross. I'm excited to see where y'all go, and hopefully y'all got some things lined up that you want to promote, maybe.
Yeah, no, we're going to hopefully do a few more festivals next year, and then we're desperately trying to get the new album out as well. You know, so it'll be our proper studio album now coming out.
Sounds
So
good.
do dig around. There's a few. There's a compilation album which is actually nearly the original band had released. It's the demo tapes that have come out, so it's nearly like the second real album, but obviously it was never released, so it's just been put out by a few labels. Yeah, so check that out as well if you want to hear the older stuff, more the
I definitely will.
original.
I
Yeah.
definitely will. And
And thanks for having me and
absolutely,
helping us spread the word about witchcraft. It's great.
absolutely, I will carry that flag proudly.
Thank you, man. Thank you. I appreciate it.
You got it. Let's stay in touch. And man, I've actually been to Copenhagen. I love the country. I've yet to step foot in London, but I have some good friends that live out there, and they've been begging me, not begging, but they've been asking me to go and pay them a visit. So hopefully I can get out there, and I'll definitely shoot you an email once I get out there.
Yeah, yeah. Hook me up when you come over, and we'll grab a beer or something and
Sounds
catch
good.
up.
Yes, sir.
Good.
All
Thanks a
right.
lot.
Thank you. Y'all check out Witchcross, y'all. This is
Yeah.
Michael Witchcross. We'll have a great one.